Okay, so for years now, we all know that Apple and Samsung have dominated the flagship smartphone segment, but year after year, it felt like they were relying more on their brand value rather than actually pushing the boundaries of what a flagship phone can be. But this year, things are different because for the first time, phones like the Vivo X300 Ultra and now the OPPO Find X9 Ultra are not just staying in China anymore. These proper ultra Chinese flagships are finally going global. I have already made a video on the Vivo X300 Ultra and I was super impressed with its cameras. But today I want to talk about this, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra. And this is not just one of the best camera phones of 2026. I think this could actually be the best phone of 2026. And I am not saying that just for clickbait. Because this phone has the most complete camera setup I have ever used on a smartphone. Couple that with one of the most polished software experiences, a massive 7050 mAh battery, and just look at this gorgeous design. So in this video, I am going to share my full experience with the OPPO Find X9 Ultra, what I liked, what genuinely impressed me, and also a few things that OPPO still needs to improve. And of course, I will show you some of the excellent photos and videos I have captured with this phone over the past few weeks. Alright, first let's talk about the cameras. And the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is the only phone right now with 5 cameras on the back. You get the main camera, the ultra-wide, a 200 megapixel 3x zoom camera, a 50 megapixel 10x zoom camera, and the 5th one is a 3.2 megapixel spectral sensor. But the real star here is the 10x camera because you don't really get a proper 10x optical zoom camera on phones anymore. We saw something similar on the Galaxy S23 Ultra a few years ago, but right now, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is basically the only phone bringing back a proper 10x zoom camera. And with this 10x lens, I had so much fun taking long zoom shots, especially when I was out on photo walks, doing wildlife shots, street photography, and even sports style photography. You get a 230mm equivalent output here, and just look at some of the samples I clicked. The results are just insane. There is great natural depth, and you will also be impressed by the clarity and the detail this 10x camera captures. And not just photos, look at this 10x zoom video of this pigeon I took. It has such a nice natural depth, focus, and clarity. By the way, this 10x camera can also click portraits, 10x portraits. So even when I was standing so far behind, I could still capture photos like this. This kid walking with his dad and this uncle on a motorbike. So yeah, this kind of camera opens up a completely different shooting experience, something you simply don't get with the usual 3x, 4x or 5x lens that most flagship phones offer these days. And if you don't need that extreme zoom all the time, I can switch to the 3x lens, which is a 200 megapixel sensor with a pretty big sensor size and also has a wider aperture, so it's a capable one. This 3x camera goes all the way up to 6x, 7x or 8x, and the details are pretty good. I did notice some issues with exposure and highlight management at times here, but overall the quality from this zoom camera is excellent. I can also capture nice looking macro photos with this camera. I would say it's not as impressive as the one you get from Vivo, but look at this. I can digitally zoom in to get closer to the subject and the results are not bad. Another thing that is absolutely amazing on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is the portraits, especially the way OPPO handles skin tone processing. Of course, it is nowhere near the level of a professional Hasselblad camera, especially when it comes to the natural skin tone rendering. But for smartphone photography, OPPO is doing a really good job here. When you zoom into the face, the natural redness, texture, and the overall skin tone looks more realistic. Especially when you compare it against the Vivo X300 Ultra, which can sometimes produce a slightly pale looking output. Even at 6x, the portraits are still excellent. It does not look like a heavily cropped image, and in low light too, I was able to get some really nice portrait shots. Okay, enough about the zoom cameras. What about the main camera here? And here we get the brand new 200 megapixel main camera. It's the Sony LYT901 sensor, the same sensor we saw on the Vivo X300 Ultra. What I really liked about OPPO's main camera is actually the color science. The colors are very good, but more than that, the white balance is excellent. It's probably because of this extra spectral sensor which helps the phone understand colors and lighting more accurately. Now, I did find the highlights being slightly inconsistent in a few images, which I hope OPPO can address with a software update, but overall, the details from this main camera are absolutely amazing. The colors are handled beautifully and the overall image processing looks quite polished, even in low light. Likewise, because of this big sensor and the wider 1.5 aperture, you can also take some really nice close-up shots with this phone. The natural blur, the depth, and the subject separation looks so pleasing. However, there are two things I missed here, especially after moving from the Vivo X300 Ultra. Number one is the 35mm main camera that you get on Vivo. With OPPO, we get the usual 23mm focal length, and at 23mm, you can notice some distortion around the edges. Vivo's 35mm perspective just feels more natural and more cinematic. And number two, OPPO does not have the best ultra-wide camera on a smartphone. It's using the Sony LYT600, which is not the biggest sensor out there, especially if you compare it with the X300 Ultra. Apart from the inferior quality, I also found the ultra-wide photos to be a little more punchy than I would have liked. OPPO's also got to improve the color consistency between the main, zoom, and the ultra-wide cameras. The color shift is more pronounced in low-light shots. And if you look at this big camera module, the ultra-wide camera is placed right at the bottom, and because of that, I occasionally got my fingertips in the frame while clicking ultra-wide photos. Likewise, the limitation of this ultra-wide camera is clearly visible in the videography aspect as well. Just like the photos, the ultra-wide videos also don't have the same color consistency as the main camera. Plus, the 1x and 3x can shoot up to 4K 120fps in Dolby Vision, but the ultra-wide camera just cannot do that. But other than that, I am actually quite happy with the video output from the other three lenses. The stabilization is good, the exposure handling is nicely done, and just like the photos, dynamic range and white balance is excellent and the colors look great. It's still not as good in terms of sharpness and stability if I compare it with the iPhone, but it's close. I particularly enjoyed taking 3x videos for product videography, close-up shots, or whenever I wanted that slightly zoomed-in perspective. In the Pro video mode, you also get OPPO's own O-Log 2 recording, and the nice thing is OPPO also gives you a lot of LUT preview options, and you can also import your own LUTs, which is actually very useful if you already have your own color grading style. One thing I hope OPPO improves is lens switching while recording videos. When you switch from, let's say, 1x to 3x or 3x to 10x, there is some jitter and the transition does not feel as smooth as it should. Okay, now while all the big camera upgrades are at the back, let's not forget that OPPO has also upgraded the selfie camera this time. It's now a 50 megapixel sensor and it's pretty good too. It is wide enough, the dynamic range is pretty decent, and the selfie videos look nice with a good field of view. Plus, you get autofocus as well. I think the skin tones could have been slightly better, but overall, I like this selfie camera. Okay, I think I have talked about the cameras for more than 10 minutes now, but the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is not just trying to be the best camera phone. MKBHD called this phone the peak of smartphone, and it's not just because of the cameras, it's because everything else on this phone also feels properly top class. After years of Chinese flagships being great on paper but not always perfect in real-life experience, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra finally feels like a truly complete product. First of all, the design. Despite having such a massive camera module and a huge 7050 mAh battery, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra does not feel as unbalanced as something like the Vivo X300 Ultra. Vivo has an even bigger camera module, and because of that, it feels slightly top-heavy in the hand, but on the Find X9 Ultra, the weight distribution feels better. Of course, compared to the Galaxy S26 Ultra, Samsung still feels lighter and more balanced overall, but for a phone with such massive camera hardware, I think OPPO has done an exceptional job here. I also really like this vegan leatherback finish. It has this classic texture, and with the Hasselblad branding engraved on the back, the phone looks really classy. And as expected from a proper flagship, the build quality here is solid. You get up to IP69 rating here, and on the front there is Gorilla Glass Victus 2 protection. The only thing that I personally did not find very useful is this camera button right here. Maybe some people will use it, but for me, honestly, I disabled it altogether. Likewise, the display experience on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is also excellent. This is a proper 2K OLED display. The Find X9 Pro only had a 1.5K panel, so the sharpness in here is more immersive. The brightness is great both indoors and outdoors, and the colors are very accurate. Another thing I really like about OPPO and OnePlus phones is their vibration feedback. OPPO's haptics tech is honestly one of the best haptic systems you can find on a smartphone right now. Although OPPO could still improve the speakers, I think. It's good, but it's not amazing. I think the bass reproduction is a bit lacking here, and the overall loudness could have been slightly higher. But the real reason why this phone for me is a serious contender for the best phone of 2026 is because of the overall experience. This is no longer the old Chinese software experience that used to feel so unoptimized or messy. Over the years, ColorOS and OxygenOS have matured a lot. The smaller UI details, transitions, and animations, everything feels very optimized. Performance is also top-notch here thanks to all of the high-end stuff that we get here. I haven't had a single day when I felt this phone was overheating or struggling to keep up. And the battery optimization is just superb. With moderate usage, you can easily expect more than 2 days of battery life, and even if you're having a heavy day, this phone can still comfortably last you an entire day. So yeah, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is not just a camera beast. Of course, the camera is the headlining feature here, but everything else is also well taken care of. Design, display, haptics, software, performance, battery life, charging, everything is flagship grade. But still, the biggest and the most exciting thing about this phone is the 10x camera. I am just so happy that a proper 10x zoom camera on a smartphone is back, and not just that, the 3x camera is incredibly capable too. So with this setup, you are basically getting optical quality zoom photos from 70mm all the way to 230mm. This phone gives you the best zoom photography experience on any phone right now. It's that good. By the way, I'm also coming up with a full camera comparison between the OPPO Find X9 Ultra and the Vivo X300 Ultra. I am currently testing both side by side, and trust me, this comparison is going to be very, very interesting. And since you have watched this video till the end, you are a true camera nerd. So subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Let's stay connected.